My hair is absurd. I got to go on Sports Center tonight, and I got to make it look better. But fortunately, I got a Prince Purple Rain T-shirt on, and that makes everything work. This is my new studio. What do you think? Obviously, if you like fighting, you like people in a cage fighting each other. Uh, Conor McGregor is fighting. This is the thing here. Yeah, that's weird. My phone was upside down. That's why it was weird. McGregor is fighting Dustin Poirier tonight. What's up? I'm on my phone, so it's very small. I won't see all the questions, but when I can read a couple, I will definitely take some questions today as starting points. Robin, how you doing, man? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I hope everybody else is doing good. I'd like to show you my studio quick, and then let's chat a little bit. So this is the same space I was in before. If you watch my YouTube channel or other places I do stuff, and I'm telling you this because a lot of people like talk about how they would love to do a podcast or do creative work. There is no fucking excuses. This is $100 worth of fake brick. And another $50 worth of paint on both walls. These are like $50 stands, and that's a desk. The belt I earned fighting in a cage. It is the Canadian bantamweight title that I earned in, I don't know, maybe 2012. Um, Robin, it's going to be a performance of the year for Connor, or will it be a war this time? Holy fuck! So that's a really great question. I didn't read it all, but I'm gonna actually touch on what that is. A mind blowing performance versus war. That's going to be our first topic of conversation because it's a fucking great one. Sorry, I dropped my notes. There we go. It's a great one. So let's start on that. There will be other things, questions pop up. It's very small. I may not see them. Please forgive me. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'll keep this here. My Twitter is at Robin Black MMA. If I can't read this here, but you got a killer question, send it and I'll see it right here. Because this is what we do in 2021. We multitask some shit. So Conor McGregor knocking out Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Some of you are gonna love this, some of you are gonna hate this. What's better? What's a better performance? Who had a better night? What was a bigger deal? McGregor knocking out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, or Max Holloway 25 minutes landing whatever 400 punches or strikes? Which one's better? Right? Which one? I don't know. There is no correct answer to this. That's the short story, but I want you to think about it. What would you rather do? You can think about it from every possible angle. And why do I bring this up? One of my jobs. What I don't have to do this. Sorry. I do have to do this because I'm compelled to do it. I feel compelled. What I mean is I'm not employed to do this. Although tonight I will be. I will go on to Sports Center right after McGregor, Poirier, and Chandler, Hooker, etc. And I will talk about it for television in Canada. So that is a job. That's a real job that I'm being employed to use my skills for. But a lot of the time, what I'm doing because I love it and I feel compelled to do it. I am not compelled to say striker versus knockout, striker versus grappler with in a stylistic matchup. I don't have any need to say knockout power in both hands. I don't want to do that. I want to be continually challenged. I want to push the envelopes. My challenge is how do I continue to learn things that in a meaningful way, I find a way to deliver something interesting, different, provocative, thought-provoking, or that teaches to the audience. And so my job isn't just to study fighting. My job starts to become to study communication and language and sharing of ideas and how we think. And so I'm super into that. I don't give a fuck about the odds. I don't care about the things we used to have to say. I have my job at so I do work for Bellator and I work for the digital creation department, which is not. So somebody asked me, "What do you?" I'm just spitballing here, so I hope nobody minds. I just haven't been live for a while, and it's fun to be in my new studio. So somebody says, "What do you do for Bellator? Are you like an analyst or?" I don't know. I'm a creator. I work with a bunch of really cool people, and I get to make cool shit with them. I was with my friend Andreas today, and we were discussing how to create meaningful pieces that were something different. And of course, we had to start we had to start. AJ McKee mentioned here. Luis mentions AJ McKee is brilliant. We had to start with what are the things that are stopping us from thinking or understanding or communicating fighting, and a lot of it is the structures of old school sports television. So I get to do that. I don't know. I'm not a commentator, MMA analyst. I get to just be a modern creator, which is exciting as hell with cool people. And then um, on Sports Center and in this environment, they call me martial arts analyst, which I request and love because I like to look at all of martial arts. MMA has become a sport, which is a sport interpretation of an art form, a complex, beautiful, ever-changing art form. I study all martial arts, and as somebody who studies martial arts and how martial arts exist in its reality in in the universe, that person is asked to offer his views. Robin, what do you think is a great way to be betting, writing up? Sorry, I can't. Shit, these things are fucked up. Um, so why is nobody talking about Kavanaugh giving away McGregor game plan in a Helwani interview? Okay, so we're going to go to performance versus war. I'm going to touch on that quickly. Why would we? So imagine what this is a really interesting question. I didn't see the interview, but what we're suggesting is that John Kavanaugh said, "This is our game plan." And if we are watching an interview and we think we see that, we would be like, "What would be our responses? What are our possibilities?" John Kavanaugh is doing something stupid. How could he do that? He's so dumb. We know that's not true. Uh, Maybe he doesn't care, or maybe it's a lie. What would you do all day, all the time? Everything you're doing is built around trying to find better and better ways, tools, strategies, tactics, thoughts, plans, processes. Everything in your life revolves around figuring out ways to use everything around you to be able to help yourself win. Wouldn't you use the media as one tool? That tool could have what you say in an interview, what John Kavanaugh says in an interview to Robin Black, and John and I are friends. I love the guy. I admire him, and I love chatting with him. He's very smart. And when we talk, John Kavanaugh off camera will probably give me a lot of truth as a friend. On camera, he will probably give me some truth as a friend, but he will also be utilizing this environment to its capacity. So, what could you do with John Kavanaugh speaking to Robin Black? You could sell fights, which would have a purpose. You have a purpose that is to say a thing to get people to respond in a way where they purchase something. You could try to mislead your opponent. Probably won't work. Your opponent's probably not going to watch that interview and think the way the audience thinks. But what your opponent may do is go, oh, you might be able to create a thought in his mind. What is highly unlikely is John Kavanaugh just fucked up. And why is this an important distinction? Because when we see something, what we should think, or what we could think, I'm sorry, you don't have to think anything. You can do whatever you want. It's your brain. We are all free to use our brains how we like. When we see something that looks like somebody done fucked up, but they're an expert, we should probably think, what could that expert know that we do not know that will make sense of this? In other words, what am I missing? Right? What am I missing? What am me the observer? When I look at my car engine, I know I don't know how that thing works. Do you believe that each round should pick up from the last? Like if well, before I go on, I don't have a preference. This is my philosophical way I look at life now. I find it to be very really it really works for me. Um, is whatever the thing is, if I cannot change it, I spend no time on it. So, like how long the rounds are, what size the cage is. If we could change the cage, so we're Conor McGregor, we want a big cage, we want a smaller cage, we might be able to request that. We have a lot of leverage. We've created a lot of leverage. Could Dustin Poirier? Perhaps, right? Probably you can't, but you might. And if there would be value in changing the size of the cage and you had the ability to do it, maybe we could pursue that. But how long the rounds are, what happens with any of the rules or structures, none of that is likely to be changed by me, so I will spend no time on it. I will spend that time acknowledging the reality of what is there and then figuring out how to thrive within what is. That's how we all look at that. Robin, if they exchange left hooks at the same time, who would get cracked I don't know if it's hard or first or whatever. Millions of variables in all of those. I've talked to Dan Hardy and Carlos Condit. Interestingly, I've talked to both briefly about that exchange. Um, and when you look at Dan Hardy and Carlos Condit, one moment, one slight difference. Somebody's so when you go to throw this left hook, something, whatever I've done before is now the starting point of the left hook. So if I happen to be here, my left hook will begin from here. If I happen to be here, my left hook might have to load. If I've missed great, wherever I am, whatever has happened is the beginning of the new process. Another way to look at it is I land my punch on you is a result of how I threw my punch, which is a result of where my punch started, which is a result of the action that took place before it, which is a result of how I responded to what you did before it, which is a result of how I trained my body. It's all just a process that results in what it results in those moments. It's just an unfolding of reality. I like to put it, every moment is informed, in fact, created by every moment that came before it. So there's 100,000 possible ways that two people can both throw a left hook and land them. Maybe a million, millions. Maybe it's infinitesimal. Every single different thought or chemical process in your body and the body of the other will change the way that dynamic happens. And all this shit is so cool. It's so cool. And and so exciting. And like I said, I have many different jobs. I'm thrilled to get to analyze this exciting fight on SportsCenter tonight. I was on with my people here today as well, and we were talking about these things. These things, and really distilling it. Sports we have created a language of sport. I'm like just here to make my night even more exciting. Thank you. That's so kind. Couple things. Everybody that's here, thank you for coming here. I haven't been on live for weeks, not at all this year. I was getting my studio together and preparing a bunch of new things. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you all for hanging. Second, I will probably be back during the fight, but not for sure. But I will 100% be here 20 to 40 minutes after the fights tonight. So after the fights, I'll be ready, wearing my suit, ready to fucking kill it on television in Canada for our viewers. Then I'll just pour myself a cold one and put a t-shirt on or unbutton as I'm going to chill out for another hour here. So we'll do that after the fights. So with my people over at Bellator today, we were discussing these truths, these universal truths exist within fighting. Why are they so difficult to explore? And many of the reasons they're difficult to explore are because of the formulas created in televised sport. That's not the fault of televised sport. Like we were saying about rounds are 5 minutes and things are what they are. But these paradigms were created. We talk a certain way. We show a certain way. We think of highlights a particular way. Those ideas dominate our thinking and they create the narratives through which we see, discuss, and actually view fighting. My job, Cape Breton Island, what's up, my friend? Volume striker. There's a good one. This guy's a volume striker. Like that's a cool word, a 2-word combination to say on television, which is where a lot of us started doing this job with the confines of time and production and all of the things. I'm just gonna set this to do not disturb because we're having fun. So I set that to do not disturb so my phone doesn't kill us. Within all those things, we create particular narratives and things that we say. And that brings us back to, we are literally on question number 1, and this is how I do like to roll. And we got a lot of people hanging out, so I think they like to roll that way too. What's better, Conor McGregor's 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo or Max Holloway's 400 punches or whatever? Hey, Robin, I'm a Korean UFC YouTuber and found Conor's left hand secret that no one in the world has ever talked about. I mean, here's the thing. So super cool, my friend. I've been to Seoul. It was one of the great experiences of my life. I'm a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I've studied. That was my first martial art, and I absolutely love Seoul. So I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad you're having fun, and I'm glad you're doing it. Here's the thing. All things, and this ties into the narratives that we're saying, at any moment in any fight, there's 10,000 things that have not been discussed, are not being discussed. When we say, let's see how good this guy's guard game is, that is, we have used the sentence that we could say. We could instead say, let's see how this guy does this, or how's the lighting affecting the way they think, or what's their body temperature at, where does this evolve from, what is this thing, who farted? Like, you can say 100,000 things at any moment. So the typical things that get said over and over in that natural state of sport commentary, if you say anything else, there's 100,000 other things you could say at any moment. And there is no such thing as Conor McGregor's left hand, just to throw this out there. Each one is different than the other. Each way that he is thrown each punch is slightly different than each other, affected by his mind, by his weight distribution, by what came before it, by his energy systems, everything. So of course you've seen things that I've never seen, and you should look for thousands more. Robin, Conor will charge explode encounter. Conor might have bubble guts from the hot sauce. See, I'm just throwing this out there. They're friends. That's cool, and I, whatever. But you got to think about everything. Of course, I could put E. coli into that hot sauce if I wanted to. Dustin Poirier did not do that. I could give you a near zero chance that Dustin Poirier had somehow affected that, intentionally decided to fuck with that hot sauce. Almost 0% chance, but one could do that. Of course one could, right? Everything is in play. Every variable matters. Good day, Mr. Black. Hello, everybody. Between 50 and 100 people popping in at any time, which is super cool. First day back in the new studio, just hanging out, thinking outside. People are kind to me and often say I think outside the box. I'm like, there's no fucking box, my friends. The box is an illusion. Hey, Robin, big fan of yours from the UK. What do you think of Conor's cardio compared to other UFC fighters? We have other questions. Performance versus war. We're just going to keep visiting that. So cardio, he said myth. There's many issues about this. One, cardio is not a real thing, right? I know we all use it, we all say it, and the greats say it, and it's something we say. But energy systems and their use is 100 things, not a thing. What's your aerobic versus your anaerobic, your O2 capacity? That's a bit of an overgeneralization. Your 3 different energy systems. ATP CP is a short burst energy system. How does your body convert and use sugars? How do you recover? What's your capacity? How do you bring oxygen into your lungs? How's your sprint versus recovery? There's 1,000 things, 1,000 of them. And when we generalize and say the same thing as like, who's the better striker? There's no real such thing as striking. That is a classification, or humans like to categorize things. Humans like to break things up and categorize. Who's the better striker, but who's got better ground and pound? Like those aren't real categories of things in the reality of the universe. Those are just things we say, which force us to think that way. So, do people, let's go to the root of it. Do people, when they fatigue, perform worse? Yes. Does this happen often for very explosive athletes, and does it affect them more? Yes. Here's one element that's probably as important or the most important of any of the other elements when we connect to this nebulous concept called cardio, and that is psychologically, how do you handle fatigue, right? And also, that's one too. When we're talking about fatigue, psychology, your brain is burning the most sugars of the lot, or amongst them. The harder we make your brain work, the more you fatigue, and you fatigue different. How do you handle fatigue? That's the other thing. McGregor on 2 occasions has handled fatigue very badly. 2 specific occasions. Other occasions handle it very well. Those ones are not as obvious. When him and Chad Mendes, I talked to John Kavanaugh about this specifically when we were hanging out in Vegas some years ago. When Conor McGregor and Chad Mendes, near the end of round 1, both get back up to their feet, there was and they're fatigued, and there's whatever 15 seconds left on the clock. There was a natural, unspoken, practiced thing that happens between 2 fighters with no communication, where we both take a breath and we back off. That's just what we do. We've done it in the gym 1,000 times, where I'm tired, you're tired. This is dangerous. My instinct is I'll take a breath and I'll back up. And Mendes did, and McGregor swelled his arms and he stepped forward and threw a kick a spear to the body with a body kick. The perfect action, a perfect choice to supersede his own fatigue and do what would be better, strategically better, and the perfectly selected weapon, attack the body. of the tired, discouraged man. That moment is as real of evidence of Connor's ability to handle the energy system fatigue, the mental fatigue, the psychological pressure of fatigue, all of these things, just as great of evidence of it working for him and him mastering it as the evidence of him fucking up versus Nate when he faded and then shot the takedown. Both are examples of the exact same thing, one, or at least variations of a similar collection of things. In one of them, he mastered it, and the other, he failed at it. That doesn't mean he sucks at this thing. That means there's evidence of both, right? And because he's human. Hi, Robin. What do you think about the whole Ottoman and situation? I don't follow a lot of news. I hear that guy got fired because he fucked up some stuff. So that's probably the right thing. What you can't have in an area, especially when you've got like all these extra protocols, is people breaking rules. So you fire somebody so everybody knows they can't break no rules in the future. I don't know what actually anything else was, but that's what I read from it. Are we supposed to believe that the UFC is not hiding any drug tests? Well, history says, aloha from the Max blessed state. Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii. I was supposed to go 2 years in a row for Bellator, and probably this December I would have been supposed to go. But the world isn't led. The universe is not allowing me to go to Hawaii yet. But hey, history says that there have been cover-ups of failed drug tests, so that's what we have to go on. But that doesn't mean they continue. How much does height impact a fight? Do you think there's an ideal height, or is it about leveraging your own body to your advantage? The second one. Uh, if there is an ideal height and you are not it, then you have to surrender to the fact that you can't be the best, and perhaps would lose to the guy with the ideal height. That's not true. You will leverage your body, you will build your body, structure your body, respond to what your body gives you, train yourself, customize yourself to make your body the ideal body, and to make it the ideal body against his body. Um, the magician, John Dodson, does he have the ideal body? Maybe. Ideal for him. You know, when you fight John Dodson and you have a 6-inch reach advantage, is that a reach advantage? Because every single time he fights somebody, he fights people with long arms. So he's more experienced at fighting guys with long arms than you are at fighting John Dodson. So is it really an advantage? Because not to him it ain't. He's figured it out. He's built himself around it. Who has the best style? I can't quite see. I'm missing something there. Hi, McGregor more humane than Max. Is McGregor more humane than Max? So I think you might be talking about an idea we introduced earlier: 13-second knockout versus 400 strikes. Which one's better? The answer is there's no better. Both got the result they wanted. Actually, I'm starting to think about it now. 13-second knockout, 400 strikes. What was gained? Well, probably this one is going to be better. Better in the long run. No, actually, it's not true. What I was going to say is being out of there 13 seconds later uninjured has its long-term value. However, those 25 minutes will give you some skills or knowledge or ability that in the future you might leverage into not getting hurt more than the guy who didn't get that advantage along his process to that future fight. Does that make sense? It's a very interesting idea to me, though. Here's the other thing. We respond real weird right now. We're all very, very, very influenceable when it comes to narratives. We hear a narrative and we kind of jump on board. It's natural. We're being taught to do that. It's something we should all search to resist. Doesn't mean you go onto weird websites and you get into fucking crazy conspiracy theories. Don't do that either. That's just a different narrative, just a weirder one, a more extreme one. But narratives in general. Oh my God, Max Holloway, one of the great performances ever. Max Holloway, he's like, this is how everyone should be fighting. This is what fighting is about. That's just nonsense. Max Holloway had a wonderful performance. If Max Holloway I don't know sports, other sports, the Golden State Warriors and then the Washington guys, is that the best and the worst? If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Let's put it this way. Let's Golden State Warriors and this bottle of G2. If the Golden State Warriors scored 260 points and these guys got 60, Would we say, oh my God, the Golden State Warriors are on a level we've never seen before? No, because it's connected to the skill level and the performance that night. Never mind the team. Were they missing any players? Was the coach there? Did somebody's grandmother pass away, their best player? Did they get injured in the first half? The result of when we're looking at numbers and we're saying, oh, a guy landed 470 strikes against Robin Black, we're like, big fucking deal. Uh, what is he like against George St. Pierre? Max Holloway versus George St. Pierre will give you a much different idea of who Max Holloway is than Max Holloway versus me. He should have me unconscious within that first 30 seconds to 1 minute. If he doesn't, and I'm able to run or survive, and he lands 100 punches on me, well, oh my God, Max Holloway landed 100 punches. Who gives a fuck? It was me, right? Max Holloway can beat any one of us watching this within 20 to 30 seconds if he chooses. 10 seconds, most likely. Probably with the first shot he threw, especially if we don't have the ability to be light enough to move with it. We have any tension in our neck, he'll just make us unconscious, right? So we have to realize that all of these things are dynamic, right? And the word dynamic meaning there's a push and a pull. There's thousands of relationships that are happening here, and and of course this is very difficult. This is why a YouTube channel is so such a gift to be able to hang out with people who will listen and throw thoughts and allow you to think about these things, because in the context of our regular jobs I don't have the time to explore this. My friends and I, if I'm there with the Chael Sonnen or Aaron in Canada, TSN, or whoever I'm working with, they'll say a thing and then I'll say a thing. And those things have to be concise because that's the nature of the platform. Here, we can talk about this truth. Max Holloway didn't have the greatest performance of all time. Because it's relevant until we see how good Kelvin Catter is in the future. Kelvin Catter could become greater than he's ever been. It would in no way impress, improve, or undermine Max's. It's all relative. What Max did was he was prime him. And that's all we can ask of anyone. That's all you're asking of Conor McGregor. That's all you're asking of Dustin Poirier. Your favorite fights, if if you go back years and you got Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit, but there's many, and there's been many recently. Um, what's happening is two humans are at their very best on the night. They're very, very best. They're in their optimum state of performance. They're in their optimum mental and physical state. They're psychologically hardened and armored and unable to be discouraged as they push each other beyond each limit either one thought they could do. And when Calvin Catter is really tough that night, he pushes Max to an even higher level, which is exciting. And I'm thrilled for Max Holloway. I would hope nobody would hear this and think in some way I was somehow not saying that man is brilliant. I'm a massive fan. I am. Um, this isn't about him and his brilliant performance. This is about us. What are we seeing? How are we interpreting the world around us? How are we understanding what we see? How are we letting narratives lead our thinking, where we actually start thinking things politically, scientifically, economically, with sport, whatever? We're starting to pick two teams and just argue any two facts because that's what we learn on television, right? Robin, what do you think about the whole Ottoman Azar situation? Kind of a shame he looked lethal. I did comment on that. If you break all the rules, we need a lot of structure in an environment where you have all these people in danger. You break rules, you got to get fired. Would Dustin Poirier have got fired? No. But it wasn't Dustin Poirier. It was somebody coming up. Now you can fire that guy and then make an example so nobody else fucks with stuff like that. They'll be very thankful that happened in the long run because I hate this truth, but wherever we are, whatever we're part of, there is a certain amount of control that has to be exercised on us. And whoever you are, you have to find how you fit into these paradigms of control. For me, I like working for Bellator. I get a lot of freedom of creativity. I did not enjoy experience working with the UFC. I enjoy analyzing the UFC with TSN here in Canada because they're creative and daring and different and young and Canadian but structures, the environments you're in, you have to accept a particular amount of control or structure. And if it's not the right fit for you, you're not right for it and it's not right for you. I'm not right for a UFC to work in that UFC company. In my experience, I could be wrong. It could be very different than my experience was. I may have played roles, whatever. I feel very right working in this environment with these people that are very creative and very encouraging and very empowering. That's how they deal with their athletes. That's how they deal with their people like me. They do that. This company is very structured. Um, I've seen it in many different ways in my limited experience, plus friends of mine that do work there or have worked there. Everything is regimented, structured, has to be this way. Now, why would that be so? And when I say it, in my mind, and you can hear it probably in the tone of my voice, I fucking hate that personally. I like to work in an environment. I believe as a creative artist that I will do better work for the grand scheme of the machine if I'm able to color outside the lines a little bit, right? And that's better for me personally, and I'm a better fit for it. It's a better fit for me. So that's my personal feeling. But I also recognize that, and the UFC is our example here. There are many businesses that could fit this example. When you're going to do 40 shows a year all over the world with 2,000 staff, all millions of moving parts, layers and layers and layers of production and fighters and agents and managers and flights and hotels and all the added stuff of COVID. You have to have some structure, and you got to fucking work within it. And so that's why they have to be that way. And they'll be thrilled that somebody fucked up so evidently that they can make an example of it, because that will prevent bigger fuck ups in the future. Robin, I've been trying to find a fight of yours. When you popped a guy's cauliflower ear, yeah, it's not, there is, his name is Knysh, Knysh. Good kid, a tough kid too. If you Google Robin Black, Matt Knysh, you may find it from an angle, but it's from the audience, and all that happens is I jump up and you just see blood all over my ribs. But I did, in round one, I smashed this guy from half guard for so much that in round two, his ear looked like this, and then I hit it, and then it exploded. All over Boss Rutan, who was commentating at the time. All over him. It was crazy. Awesome kid. I'm very thankful that he popped me and that I was able to win that one. Hey, everyone, how will Chandler get on tough against Hooker? That's a cool one too, man. Hey, Robin, hi from Calgary. Yeah, what's up, Calgary? Um, so Michael Chandler is my friend. I can't believe that Robin isn't commentating cage side for UFC. Their loss. Very kind of you. I do get that pop up. Much less. There was a couple of years where it's just like, Dana, why Dana hire this guy? And then eventually it's like I move myself from being heavy into their stuff and going deeper into the other things that are a better fit for me and better that enrich my own experience a lot more. When Joe Rogan recommended me to Dana, and then I went to the office, and then I sat there, and Dana and I were dancing around, acting out how this stuff goes. He turned to the executives and he's like, "I want to try this guy on commentary." And I did 4 or 5 commentary for some Fight Pass stuff, and I did an awesome job. Then they cut that whole department, and then from there you move in some other underneath some nebulous amount of executives or whatever, and you fall through the cracks. So I never really, but Dana's intention was I want that guy to try that guy on commentary. But the truth is I'm not a good fit there. I'm really not. And had they given me the key chance, people love the word opportunity. They add this tone to it where it sounds really important. If they added this element uh, of like if they moved me into that in their paradigm, you have to talk a certain way. There has to be a certain kind of structure. They want you to be a particular kind of thing that you do, and you have to do it their way. And I would have probably back then, and because I wanted to do it. I wanted to sit there with my buddy Joe Rogan, the coolest person I know, and Anna, who's a friend, really good friend, and commentate fights. Of course, I wanted to do that. But to do that, I would have had to make sacrifices to my own thinking, to my own learning, to my own process that wouldn't have got me to here. Here, I see the world differently. I have a different relationship with martial arts that fills me with joy and passion and excitement. I think that would have been more likely kind of, either hammered out of me gently as you malleably form me into what you need for that role, or I would have been somewhat rebellious and I would have been really annoying to them. And ultimately, I don't think, you never know. You never really know. Like, you just don't know how that could be. But And there was definitely a period in that process where I felt mad and sad and whatever, that wasn't the way my route was going. But that time has passed now. Now I am certain I'm where I should be, and I'm certain that would have been. And I could be wrong. It's good. It's healthy and feels good to be sure that wasn't where I was intended to be, and that would have been to my detriment for my understanding. They all speak the same. They all think the same. They all, there are like trenches of thought through which they kind of have to shoehorn all of their stuff through on in all of their settings, right? And that's why the language is identical. By not being in that, I ended up here where I see it all entirely differently. My connection to martial arts now is, like I said, an incredibly joyful one. It's informed the way I see the world. It's informed the way I am a husband to my best friend, who's my wife. It's informed the way I've built my business. It's informed the way I've done all of these things, and it's wonderful. You don't know where your path is going. You do not know where your path is going, and there are moments on it where there's deep, deep slashes of uncertainty. You have to trust yourself to a certain degree, and you have to also be somewhat decisive, and sitting there, sort of in their, what's the word, in their ecosystem, waiting until I get a chance to do one hit somewhere for 3 or 4 years until I get a chance to do one fight pass thing in a thing at the that's not for me, man. In that time, I made 1,800 breakdowns. Those 1,800 breakdowns have shaped my thinking, and they've shaped my understanding, not just of martial arts, but the world around us. So you got to find your path, and you got to trust it. And when in doubt, do more work. That's a big one for me. When in doubt, do more work. And so, and now you can. You can fucking take your phone and talk about fighting or art or Gatorade or whatever the fuck you want. What must admit, would love to see you and Dan Hardy both analyzed together in UFC. Me and Dan have done a hit or two together. If you Google, put us in YouTube, you'll see a couple that we did probably 5 or 6 years ago when I was at Fight Network. Dan and I are friends, and I like Dan. I think he's really cool. I don't think I'm gonna be doing a lot of stuff there. My future, I'm pretty sure, as much as I'm thankful I get to analyze these big fights in the best sports television channel in Canada, go on there with my full passion and my full commitment and my full, dedication to doing the best job I can, and it gets to be seen in Canada. But then my creative and developmental future, I'm pretty sure right now is probably there. That's my guess. That's how it feels. When I hang out with the people at Bellator and I'm talking about these concepts, they get excited by them. They encourage me to pursue them. They look at the world around us and they start to recognize, hey, wait a second, we're all having the exact same conversations over and over again. It's like we're trapped, and let's get untrapped. And so the real question is, what do you think Dana's gonna get the streamer? Nah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's business, right? Um, I don't know how I feel about that one. It's like on one level, if you create a business, you should be able to protect it. On another way, you know, although that streamer is probably making direct money. Is he though? Is that streamer making money? Or is he just part of opening up and what he believes to be sort of free communication? I don't know. Do you think the head in Abu Dhabi will correct Connor's the heat in Abu Dhabi? Whatever variation you see, so heat, elevation, any of these things, if you know to ask about it, they know to prepare for it. You can prepare for anything. How you handle anything is a reflection of the preparation you did. That's what that is. So I'm just seeing if anybody put a couple questions up here. Listen, Kiri, you're fantastic. Keep it up. Thanks. Uh, Robin, your outlook and drive is amazing. I wish I had that when I was your age. You don't know how old I am. You don't know. I'm 50. Fucking 50. My job is to stay fit and healthy enough to be able to now that. So this is the one I want to have. My wife's 34, so I'm hoping we have a kid. You have a kid at 51 or something. Your job is to be fit, healthy, strong. Able to be a father of an 18-year-old at 68 or whatever, right? That's a challenge. But I also, my art and my work, this is my life's work. This is what I've literally, the reflection of everything I've tried to do, learn, develop, every fight I had in the cage, every training session I had, every piece of art, everything I wrote or edited. This is my life's work. And I didn't get to the point where I made a good living and had total freedom to do it until now. So I need to keep myself healthy enough to get 10 or 15 years of meaningful work out of this era and leave something special behind. That's what I have to do. Uh, if they paid the fighters a bigger share of the profits for every pay-per-view, pretty much. So again, should Dustin take down McGregor? We can touch on that one in a second. Again, I'll come back to this whenever it comes up. What can you control and what can you not control? I cannot control the UFC giving me more money on pay-per-view if I fight. What I can control is trying to become so good, so talented, so focused, so learned, so skilled, so fit, so strong, whatever I can control, that if I do that well enough, it will unpack some of these other things. Some of these other things may become available. I cannot get money on my pay-per-view. I cannot make Dana White give me something, Robin Black or a fighter or you. I can't make a company. That was the flaw in when I was like, I want to be the UFC commentator with Joe Rogan and John Anik. I can't control that. Controlling that would be the route to that is, who do I find to convince, who is the gatekeeper? How do I go in and make sure that gatekeeper believes I'm the right guy? All of a sudden, to accomplish that goal becomes about, giving back massages and playing with people's testicles, saying, finding just the right people to pay fealty to make them think it's their idea that they hire me. What I can better control, that's a job, that's a role. Roles are not achieved through your hard work, your preparation, your improvement, your skill, your development. Roles are generally achieved with a small bit of that and a whole lot of dick sucking. And some people can do that if they want. Some people can become good at the corporate bullshit. Some people can become good at the hierarchies, the navigating of hierarchies. You can do that. There's no problem with it. And I do not judge you if that's the choice you choose to make to find the way to achieve your goals. But my goal, that's a flawed goal. That goal is not a result of me doing the small goals along the way. Become a better martial artist, become a better communicator, create meaningful stuff, be able to be prolific and do more and more work that's better and better, break rules, shatter paradigms, try to constantly innovate. Those are my goals. Those goals could lead. And what's a larger goal from that? So you figure out what your small goals are. Your large goal from that is create change, make something that fucking moves people. Nobody needs me to take my turn saying knockout power in both hands, striker versus grappler in a stylistic matchup. Nobody needs that. I'm benefiting nobody, myself included. What if I could create different thought? What if I could learn things through martial arts that inspire people to see the world in different ways? What if I could do that? That's a noble goal. That's worth doing. That goal could be enhanced if I did commentate next to Joe Rogan and John Anik, but it is not the goal. It could be a part of it. That goal, if that were to happen, it could be achieved by me becoming so good at the things I do, only a dummy wouldn't go and at least find a way to invite me into that paradigm. However, in the process of becoming good at the things you wanted to do, that the process of actualizing yourself to be the best you can be, you no longer want that. I don't want to work in that environment. Along the way, this one started to be like, wait a second, these guys are all martial artists. Scott Coker, Rich Chow, Mike Kogan, the three top executives, all lifelong martial artists, right? They're like me. They're not obsessive business moguls. They're not capitalist fucking corporate takeover machines, although they're good at business. They're martial artists. Right away, I'm in a place that makes more sense for me, right? Now, the people that they hire will also be like-minded. Now you start to get a corporate environment that's being built that is a really good fit for me. And that's not a judgment. What's good for me is not what's good. I'm just a guy What's good for you might be to work for Coca-Cola or the UFC or McDonald's or Nike or a big powerful corporation. What might be better for me as an oddball artist might not be, and I might be bad for them. I would drive those fucking people crazy. I remember losing my job 3 years ago at the same time you lost your gig at TSN. It was the Fight Network. I still work at TSN. And I'm so thankful. I love it there. You were a big motivator during those depressing times. Really happy for you, Robin. Big love. Thanks, man. Yeah, that's so kind. I'll touch on that for people. Chandler's work well. Can he make the transition to top five? What's your prediction for the fight? I do know Chandler's work well. Michael Chandler, what's your thoughts on Dana White and the legal streamers? Michael Chandler is. Oh, we're still there. I'm sorry. I thought my phone wouldn't ring if I set it to do not disturb. It was my wife, and of course I want to answer the phone. If she's watching right now, sweetie, I will call you. But she wouldn't call me in the middle of watching, so she's definitely not watching. But she's my favorite person. She really is. I'm super lucky. Things are really good in my life. But yeah, Michael Chandler. Mike handles pressure really well. Mike really has a good understanding of what's really happening in there. And I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of these fighters really don't know what it is that they're doing. And that's good. That's really good for a lot of them. They don't need to know. They need to know what they need to know. If you've got the right coach, and it's not about game plans, because we don't all really, the way we discuss game plans is a sport-based conversation that's not based super huge in reality either, but we'll talk. That's a conversation for another day. Series that I'm making actually right now, where we're getting a little more in depth into a lot of these narratives and myths and stuff about fighting. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be a fun adventure. And but a lot of these fighters, if you give them procedures, do this, prepare this way, get yourself ready like this. When you're in there, breathe this. Give them the things to focus on. That's for some of them that works great. You can become. There's been many a champion. George St. Pierre knows almost everything about almost everything, but when he fights, he'll keep it pretty simple. Because if you lose control of your thought process, you start thinking about crazy shit, you can lose. Mike's real. I love Michael Chandler. I find him very inspiring, and I find him very, very exciting, and I like him, and I like him as a person. Uh, I find that Mike has an understanding of how tenuous his connection to controlling the fight and letting it happen is. You'll hear him if you see 10 of his interviews, you'll hear him talking about being strapped to a tornado, tied to a tornado, or walking the razor's edge, or whatever, sort of analogies he likes to use. But what he's talking about is that how much, and I've had conversations with him about it for DAZN and for Bellator, about how much are we actually like in control of this, and how much do we want to be in control of it, and how much is the freedom of it, and how much are you leading it, and how much are you allowing it to unfold. That's when you connect to that reality of it, it's a really wild one, and Mike understands it really well. He's a fucking really great fighter. He's fighting a dangerous guy. He has, Ben Henderson is that tall, being that these guys are such different fighters. Well, people, since the first bout, are there any takeaways you can get from studying it? So a lot of the way people will say, hey, that if people don't know my work, but you did, and somebody said, what does that guy do? And you'd say, well, he does fight breakdowns. That might be a way that somebody might say that. The way we break down fights is mostly nonsense. When in the confines, it's not untrue, but a lot of it is fucking nonsense. A lot of it it's entertaining, it's interesting. There are revealing things about it that can, we humans like to like unpack things and go, wow, look what's in this box. And when we do traditional fight breakdowns, we do that. But a lot of things like this guy is heavy on his front leg, or he overcommits to this thing. A lot of that is absolute bullshit. Because if we're capable of saying it, it's called a second order chaotic system. Just by saying it, we change the relationship to it. If everybody says out loud, Nate Diaz is susceptible to leg kicks. What happens? It's either true, Nate Diaz is susceptible to leg kicks, but by that piece of information going into the world, you may start to leg kick him now. That's affected everything. It's affected everything. That piece of knowledge changed everything. What's Nate Diaz going to do? Nate Diaz is fucking way smarter than anybody gives him credit for. He's a genius of combat. I think Nate Diaz is going to sit around and go, oh, well, I'm heavy on the front leg, I guess. Hope people don't leg kick me. You know? Like if you can see it, if you can say it or write it in your article or show it in a video as truth, it becomes no longer true. The layers aren't, how are you going to handle Conor McGregor's left hand? How are you going to deal with Conor McGregor's left hand? The layers become, Dustin Poirier knows the dangers of my left. Donald Cerrone knows the dangers of my left hand. So Donald Cerrone will duck under and come in close, or he'll move away and I'll throw a head kick. Both of those strikes took place because Conor McGregor didn't play the news, he played the reaction. That's a saying from economics. That's a saying from investments. My friend Marc Andre, who plays the markets, uses that term. Don't play the news, play the reaction, right? So the news is the housing market is dropping. Don't play the news. The news says we better get out. The reaction is everybody's getting out. Let's wait and buy a cheap house. That's playing the reaction, right? Conor McGregor isn't playing the news. The news is Conor McGregor's got a killer left hand. Donald Cerrone will play the news. I got to get under it or away from it. So Conor McGregor plays the reaction. Why did he first hip, then shoulder? Because Donald's reaction to this was get here. So he's here, so I hit him. Next Donald reactions to this is move away. So I throw a left. As he's moving away, my foot comes up and kicks him in the head. Our desire to do what we see done is our flaw. When you see somebody who does not fight, and it's on Twitter, but some people do it for their job. Somebody sent me a thing that said Stephen A. Smith shouldn't be analyzing fighting. Of course he shouldn't, right? It's like writing your own best scenario. Well, it's like a flow chart. If I do X and you do Y, Y's response will create this. Do you know about, yes, so people have been asking about this guy being cut. I don't know if it's the same person, but I mentioned if somebody breaks all the rules, you got to cut him. If you cut him, then less people will break the rules in the future. So you play the reaction of the individual. You don't play the thing. And that layering is going on to such a degree, and it's so difficult to talk about that when you watch something, people, and when people emulate analysis, right? So you'll see there are people on the internet, some of them are very good people. Some of them are sportscasters or whatever, and they will play the role of a sport analyst. They will say the guy does a pump fake and does a thing, or he's using his jab to set up this. They are not analyzing football or fighting. They are emulating analysis. When you emulate analysis, you take things you've heard before and then look for them. But the things you heard before were created for television, so they're not in truth. Right? They're not in truth. So everyone who says anything about Conor McGregor's, the way he throws it, they are repeating what somebody once said about something that once happened. But that's not who Conor McGregor is. And our narratives in television, our narratives in analysis don't allow for that. The whole paradigm works in, well, tell me what to look for in this guy. Well, this guy is a 10, and we used to do it. And I will take credit for probably around and bad credit. Like I'm going to say I could be partly to blame. Around 2013, 14, if you go back and go Fight Network 5 rounds, you'll see all these television programs that me and my friend John Ramdeen did of analysis 7 and 8 years ago. And we got to do so much. We would do 12 hours a week. And they, if you were working at Fox or doing fight broadcasts, you get 2 broadcasts a month. So we got to do 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So we created these really stupid things that we did. Like I used to say, this is a guy who, and then go to the thing and go, this is a guy who, yeah, but this is a guy who, this is still said all the time. I'll take some blame for that. Maybe I didn't say it first. Maybe I heard it somewhere else, but I said it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times out of habit. Conor McGregor's a guy who, man, you got to watch out for that left hand, but he's really good at controlling the distance. Now, if he controls the distance in this way, what Dustin Poirier's got to do is implement his grappling. That bullshit, you know, people like me are responsible for creating that. People like me did it. And now it's done and it's reproduced. If anybody says things like implement his grappling or, shoot the takedown or, control manage the distance or any of these are just narrative talking points where we were doing our best to make, think about it. Let's put away everything else I just said, and just start with this. The most beautiful or fascinating or complex or incredible things in the world. Think of them, whether that is a Mona Lisa during that time, or some great piece of architecture, or Khabib Nurmagomedov in the way that he is able to physically dominate other men, or the greatest songs ever written. Can you imagine how stupid and absurd and insulting and ridiculous it is to attempt to take these things, the genius moments and genius creations of humanity, and try to explain them in sound bites? Like, in all honesty, I understand that we do television and sports and we do these things, and this is part of what we do, but think about how stupid that is, ultimately. The greatest paintings of all time, sum it up in a soundbite. Come on. There are plays that were written. There are paintings that were painted that have people have dedicated their entire lives to attempting to explain it and cannot. There are Shakespearean plays and all kinds of things, Mozart, all these things that people have spent lifetimes, entire masters and PhD, theses have been created trying to understand these things. This is what we do. This is how we, and of course, martial artistry is something like this. Narrative talking points like flim flam. Yeah, of course. That kind of nonsense, right? I coined that term 7 years ago. It was dumb, right? It was stupid. Where are you supposed to go? You're supposed to say, oh my God, knockout power in both hands. Oh, look, Conor McGregor's flashing the flim flam and now the touch of death or the Celtic cross. We do that for entertainment purposes. We do that to sell things. We do that to create excitement in people. But it's not fucking real. And not only is it not real, it's harmful. When you think about it, we become less and less inclined to look at the beautiful complexities of the universe when we watch CNN or Fox or MSNBC or Fox Sports or ESPN. We become less inclined to dig into reality and more inclined to hear sound bites and think we understand. And that's dangerous. Do a catchphrase only analysis of a painting on Art Fight podcast. Yeah, love to. Catchphrase only. That's fun. Catchphrase only. But what are we doing? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. It's craziness. It's craziness. We start to actually become less aware while simultaneously being more sure that we know. And that's fucked up. That's dangerous. That's bad. If you see people doing crazy shit in the world and fighting about stuff and both yelling and thinking the other one's insane, we're all insane. We think we can explain Khabib's father's lifetime and all of the knowledge that came before him and applied through Khabib, through his history and his culture, all that he's learned, all that he does when he goes in and performs in these moments. We think we can explain that by saying this guy's got, elite level wrestling, and then think we know what that is. It's fucking madness, right? It's madness. Think of it. But this was the direction that we went for a long time. And it's still a direction we go. Instagram is now shortened to TikTok. We got 15 seconds, and I'll tell you, like I said, I've never been more creatively excited than I am right now with some of the projects that I'm building with a team at Bellator. Um, and on one end, it is the deepest things, and on the other, we're like, can I explain? Uh, can I bring some kind of meaning to a 15-second look at a moment using only the word bink? And you look at it and go, okay, well, should I not do that? Or will those people ever leave that 15-second world? And if they will not, and I choose to ignore them, and I say, I judge them, or I say that this is unacceptable. This is a de-evolution of human thought, which is part of what I'm actually saying. And I should be less judgmental because this is what is. I was saying earlier, you must accept what is. This is the direction many of us are going. Bink, like a picture speaks 1,000 words. No, that's exactly right. Can we actually do something meaningful using only the word bink? Because if I can't, and I make 7-minute videos looking at these things in depth, there's a 70% of humans will never see them. And if I'm yelling a bunch of shit into a crowd where 70% of people aren't listening or not interested or don't understand or have changed the way they think, then now I've just said they're not worthy of showing the beauty of martial arts to. Makes no sense, right? It's a crazy world, man. Should fighters stop sparring like Max Holloway did? Now, again, this is one of those narrative things, and we must look deeper. We must look deeper. Uh, it's incumbent on us if we're going to understand the world around us. And I'm not trying to be judgmental, and I'm not mad, and I'm not trying to be a dick. Max Holloway. And I'm not to you because what you used the word stop sparring. So right away, that word is really important there. Should fighters stop sparring? That's an excellent use of the English language because the stop at some point, yes, you must stop sparring. I've stopped sparring. I can't get hit in the head anymore. I just can't. I got hit in the head too much. I got too many concussions. I have stopped sparring. Now I'm not a professional fighter anymore, and I didn't make my whole living on it. I wasn't building my my memories and my legacy. I hate that word. Maybe we'll get into that on another day. Why I hate that word, but building my sort of the story of my life. My life's work isn't built around fighting. If it was, that's very different. It is built around martial arts, but not around competing. Max Holloway stopped sparring, but where he is now is of the skill he has is a result of everything he did before it. So all of that sparring made him so good that now maybe he could take a break from it, but he can't stop. There is a functionality to how the nervous system works within that speed that has to exist. That you have to keep. You have to keep it like tuned, and you have to retune it. So he must spar, but you can spar fast and light. You can spar. There's different ways to do it. You can get as much value of the sparring and diminish the damage. Also, even the word sparring, it's misleading. Max does spar. He just doesn't spar with full contact. Max does a fuckload of sparring. Whatever word he used, however we're using that word will depend on how we see it. But sparring is something that can be done without contact, right? For perceptions of really limit our understanding of what is actual and real. When we allow for perception to be malleable, we begin to push through limits. Yes, I like that. Max stopped hard sparring. That's good. Yeah, I like that. Uh, even that. What's hard sparring? So Max stopped full contact sparring would be my guess. And did he stop semi-contact sparring? I don't know. Uh, what's how much can I spar with a full headgear and 16-ounce gloves that's of any value to me because I don't wear headgear when I fight, and the gloves are very small, and a 16 or an 18-ounce glove is very large. So all of those things. What am I getting out of that, anyways? Right. So, uh, but adjusting these things, but no universals. Sorry. Rarely do we use universals. We rarely use the words always and never. Never spar. Always spar. We rarely use those words. We look for the subtleties. We make the adjustments. Uh, what explains Max's amazing cardio? We talked about cardio. It's going to be a big one for one of my new series with Bellator. Cardio is not what we think it is. Max, there are so many variables. So somebody will say, well, I'm going to use the word chin instead of cardio. I know that those represent different ideas, but I'm going to look at how these words come to be known. Once upon a time, in boxing, people would describe somebody's ability to absorb a punch, ability to roll with a punch, ability to take damage while tired, heart, uh, you know, ability to, all of these things, their physical structure, all of these things. And then over time, slang would be like, they got a good chin. Right, that would become the slang for these 27 variables about movement and staying relaxed and having being fit and being strong and being conditioned and experience and all of those things. We would use the term chin as a slang to when speaking quickly on television, when there's a fight going on, we would just use that slang, even though once we went to the slang, it still represented 16 things. 20 years later, chin people think is a score, some attribute like in a video game or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, an attribute which could be measured. It's not, it's 27 things, all in different times, right? And sometimes it's just fluke. If you catch me here, I go to sleep. And if the jaw moves in such a way that my brain touches both insides of my skull within the liquid it's suspended in, it's called a coup contra coup injury, I just turn off. It doesn't matter what my chin is or was. And cardio is the same thing. We use it as a slang, but it represents, there's 100 variables and there's 100 things at play. But Max Holloway fought that fight aerobically. If you look at Max Holloway fighting that fight and Tyron Woodley or even George St. Pierre at sort of peak, Chad Mendez, those fighters have fought with much more anaerobic. Burn, rest, burn, rest, burn, rest. That's anaerobic. Aerobic is go for a jog. Two totally different systems. Two completely different systems of the body. And within those, there are many, many, many things happening. Just making that choice and staying relaxed makes Max perform different, makes him fatigue different, makes him not fatigue or recover better. All of those things. There's thousands of things. This is very similar to the talk show you did with Thorin recently. Oh, that's so cool. I love that guy. I love talking to Thorin. Can only condition toughen the chin by shaving more. Conditioner toughen the chin by shaving more. I'm missing part of it. I can only see some of these things. I used to have perfect vision. Actually, I had bad vision. Then I had laser correction for my last fight. And then I had perfect vision. And now it's getting a little worse. Hooker versus Thompson for the nicest motherfucking title. Stephen Thompson should just get that belt. He's the nicest guy in the world. And that's actually what he's like, too. I'm friends with his dad. I'm pretty good friends with his dad. I've had his dad on a couple of streams for a few hours during Bellator fights, watching the fights. And his dad's super nice, too. But a little rougher, a little tougher than Stephen. Imagine if there's aliens out there with different anatomies and they did their own mixed martial arts leagues. Yeah. There aren't many sort of real limitations or rules, true rules of science that we as many as we think they are. There are some truths. Gravity is real. You will fall. But your body needs oxygen. There are some fundamental truths. You burn sugars as a use of energy. Like there are some fundamental truths, and one of them is we have two hands and 2 feet and a head and stuff. There are some fighters who have one hand or one arm, and there are fighters who have a different shaped leg, or there are fighters whose hip is slightly different. There's fighters whose backs are really long. So there's a lot of variation within humans already, like quite a lot. especially the more you look at these things. Michael Chandler never fought a Dan Hooker ever before. How Dan Hooker's body is shaped may be the biggest challenge to him. There is no other Dan Hooker. Nothing can be more beautiful than how humans fight. Man, I'm with you. It's something so special. I'm against Conor versus Pacquiao. Does not float my boat. You don't have to be against it to dislike it. I don't really care, but I'm not against it. I will say Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul, they said, or whichever Paul it was, they're like, this is canceled. People aren't interested. I think that's a good thing. Again, that's only my opinion. I'm not against that fight or any fight like that happening. I am I am a believer in accepting what is. If the world says we just need to see Logan Paul or Jake Paul or whoever it is fight Floyd Mayweather, I'm not mad. Like that's okay. The world's going to do that now, and I'm just going to sort of go with it and figure out how that matters to me. Does it matter to me? Do I watch it? Do I become gainfully employed in some way around it? Do I look for something in it? Do I find something interesting to tell the story about it? What do I do? And I just accept it. But there's something about us saying we don't care that I think is good, and I think is and that's a judgment on my part. That's me judging us, us people, us society. But I'm human, so sometimes I make judgments. I cast judgments. In this case, I'm like, I think it's a good thing that this idea that just fame, fame or the leverage created by a lot of people being interested in your behavior, uh, generally used to come as a result of something you did, something special. It was a byproduct of something. Before the Kardashians and before that, Paris Hilton. I met Paris Hilton on a couple of occasions. I was at a party once at Derek Whibley. No, uh, the drummer, Sum 41. He had a party at his apartment, and Derek was dating Paris Hilton at the time, and there was only like 15 people there. So I got to be around her. Sum 41. A lot of friends and common, so I was around that. Before her, beginning of it, and I don't judge her either. She was a young person navigating the world around her, a changing world around her, and did what she could do with the world around her. Good for her. She actualized her life the way she felt right at the time for her. But before her, fame was a byproduct of doing something meaningful. You could be famous for uh, somebody said it's sad to see champion levels fighters. For Floyd Mayweather, if he wants to fight like that, he's earned it. He can do it. If we watch it, great. But fame was a byproduct of doing something. So you were famous because you did something great. You made great art, or you were a musician, or you were an actor, or a storyteller, or you wrote books, or you built something, or you could also be famous for bad things. You were like in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of people hurt people in America and became famous. There were books about serial killers and terrible people. Fame was a result of something that you did. Famous comedian, somebody told a lot of jokes that were hilarious. We found them and we started to pay attention to them. Fame was a byproduct of creating or adding something to the world, or somehow came as a result of you giving or doing something. With Paris, it became a sort of commodity, something that could be farmed. You could farm it, you could grow it, and you could nurture it, and it actually wasn't a byproduct. It became a product. It became a currency. And then the Kardashians, of course, they then took that, and then we just behaved like, oh, they're famous, therefore they can do these things, which added made them more famous. And then YouTube, Logan Paul, etc. Those guys then farmed attention. I guess that's the best way to attention. And as a result of having a lot of attention, they could then say, look, we have a lot of attention. That would be very valuable to your company. Why don't we make a deal? Look, we have a lot of attention. That'd be very valuable to your fight card. I like fighting. My name's Jake Paul. I like to fight. I'd like to be a boxer. That's my dream, or one of my dreams. I'm going to leverage my attention and use it to get a chance to fight and become a fighter or become a singer. Back in the day, if you were you were a great singer, you became famous, you could become an actor now. Or you were a great football player. Who was that guy who played football and baseball. Uh, he could be on Saturday Night Live. You know, they used to leverage their fame um, to get other things that they wanted, but the fame was a byproduct of having done something. With this YouTube sort of generation learning all of the lessons, and I don't judge them. Again, it's there to be farmed if you choose to farm it, and that's what you want to do. I'm here to tell you, I suspect 2024, 2025, we start to see books on how hard it actually was. Not everybody's gonna, feel bad for them. But I'll tell you, Colby Covington choosing to use some of these tools as a way, and he has not become super famous, but as a way to sort of, use it as a tool the way these two, that's hard. Lost a lot of friends. That's real. Those are real friends. Those are real people who don't like him now. He goes to places and people are like, look at that fucking asshole. Like, that's real. That really happened. So these people, they will come later and say, hey, yes, I became rich, I became famous, but the world hated me. I did shit I'm not proud of. That's what, and so forth. So, but for us to go, actually, we're kind of over this. We don't know why we'd care about you fighting Floyd Mayweather. I don't think we do care. That I think is a good sign. I think it's maybe a sign that just the idea of fame for fame's sake doesn't have the impact that it used to have. If you pick up your phone, this is my phone, but I can do it on here. You pick up this and you go to Instagram. Um, Whether you're looking at young dudes who do a particular skill, I don't know, climbing or skateboarding or whatever, or you're looking at beautiful women who leverage their beauty and their personality, whatever. There's thousands of ways. I don't know how many people have 10 million Instagram followers, but I'd be willing to say I bet it's 100,000. You never heard of any of them. As a result, most of them, maybe it's not 100,000, maybe it's 90,000, maybe it's 30,000, I don't know. But you don't know who they are. As a result, that is no longer as big a commodity as it once was, which is kind of also the fact that, again, I'm spending a lot of time on this, and I'm surprised, but I'm interested in how these things connect to culture now. Logan Paul or Jake Paul or whatever coming out and just acting like jackasses and making videos. The videos do get viewed 25 million times, but then they're meaningless. The next, and fucking Conor McGregor's smart. Dana White too. These guys understand. Just don't bite. Just don't. And they didn't. Floyd did. Floyd was like, let's make this thing. This is here. Of course, I'll knock out some fucking YouTuber for $80 million. Let's do it. And the world was like, I don't know. I don't think we care. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing because inherently, fame doesn't have any value. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I have 145,000 followers on Instagram. Big John McCarthy versus Tech in a, I don't know. I can't read. My eyes are getting tired. Floyd rewards other fighters' attention if it's really there. Yeah, if it values him. If it values him. And as a promoter, he does too because he gets it. So yeah, I have 145,000 Instagram followers. I shouldn't say that has no value. One, I appreciate every fucking one of them, which is so cool that these people want to watch my videos that I make and share there. And I have like 35, 40,000 people on YouTube, even though I'm only here rarely, but thanks for hanging with me. It is completely incorrect to say that doesn't have value, and I'll tell you why. Is because a lot of what I get to do now, which is to do the things, I don't need to make 200 million a year. I don't need to make 2 million a year. I don't need to make 2 million in the next 3 years. I'm going to get paid plenty of money to talk about martial arts all the time. As a result, I have lots of freedom to analyze martial arts, to think about martial arts, to read about martial arts, to view things, to watch them all day. I have been empowered to go deeper into my thing. And there's nothing in the world more valuable than that to me. My wife and I can pay to live in our home and to do the things that we do and to have a good life while I get to continue my nonstop study and deep dive into martial arts. That's fucking powerful. That is the most meaningful thing that I could ever imagine. And that did happen. A part of the ingredient for that happening is these, 250,000 people that follow me throughout these multiple platforms. Now, that's not only that though. How, and I'm hoping this is some useful hack for people because although I have a toque on, I am not Gary Vee. Um, but I am interested in these things and they do matter and they do connect to all of our jobs. And so maybe this is useful. Those, the only way that you will acquire people who will follow your work is if your work is fucking good. The only way your work will be good is if you do a shitload of it. Nobody in the world is really good at anything they didn't do a lot. You know, not as really good as they could be if they did it a lot, right? You become, you must be capable of doing great work if you want anyone to care about the work that you do. And that's not today. You're not going to do great work today. You're going to do great work in 2 years. If you make, so I made 1,700 breakdown videos in the last, let's say, 6 years. 1,100 ago, they were nowhere near as good as they are now. 300 ago, they were not as good as they are now. And at 600 in the future, they will be much better. Wherever I get to at a point where I'm analyzing things holistically or philosophically or in a way that is useful and meaningful to people, directly relates, like we were saying earlier, about your left hook as a result of where you threw it from, which is a result of where you moved as a result of what he did. Everything connects to everything else. If I finally have a breakthrough of a piece 600 breakdowns from now that changes the way 2,000 people see the world, that will be as a result of one I did 450 ago. And that, all of that work is what builds you an audience. So at the root of it, there is no audience. And maybe that's why this, and what I'm saying is old school. The old school, like how things used to be. I hate being that guy. I don't want to be that old white 50-year-old. I'm like partially native, so I'm fully white, but still, I don't want to be that old basic 50-year-old guy saying, "Oh, I like the way things used to be." But back in the day, if I have a following of people who like my shit now, it's a direct result of the work. I worked really fucking hard. There may be the next guy, and I'm serious. The next guy in the 10 people that's you would say who breaks down fights. Well, Dan does, and this guy does. The next guy might have done 200 in his life. I'm close to 2,000. Um, that the work made me, built my skills and forced me to learn and gave me the failures necessary to improve and so forth. All that work is what then also earns you the humans. Real human beings are like, yeah, I'd spend a minute with this guy. That's what fucking floors me when I'm doing when I'm looking on, say, Instagram. I'll literally, you know, this is a Michael Chandler breakdown that I made, and I don't know, sometimes 100,000 people, just here. There was one the other day. These guys, this guy knocking out this guy. It's an old one, and 100,000 people watched that. 118,000 people, and I was like, 118,000 people said, "Yeah, I'm gonna spend a minute with this guy. I like this guy. I'm gonna spend a minute with him and see what he has to say." How come? Because those 118,000 have at some other point along the line, Deion Sanders, yes, that was the guy. Deion Sanders was a great football player, and so they were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll let you play baseball. You're probably pretty good." And then when he was good at that, they were like, "Yeah, okay, you can come on Saturday Night Live. Sure, you can be in a movie." People who were famous did use their fame to get stuff, but the fame was as a result of having already given something, created something, done something, achieved something. That's the difference between sort of the Paris Hilton to the Kardashians to the Paul brothers, etc. That all of a sudden that initial offering to the world ceased to exist, and it was just like, well, we're here, join us. And again, I'm not mad at it. And I hope those people do find happiness in their success. But I got a weird feeling there's an emptiness in there. When you always know let's say that Paul brother did fight Floyd Mayweather. Uh, good for him. You're in there, you made $40 million, bought the best in the world, you had this excitement. Somewhere in the back of your mind, though, you know it was achieved through creating a snowball of attention and fame. There's nothing wrong with that, but it might undermine your own belief in you being there. Uh, the feelings of all people, not all people, it's not true. And I correct myself on these things often because I'm trying to learn to, over time, be more and more truthful and factual and look at the world in reality. What is? I'm interested in what is. Um, many people, many people, most of you watching this and myself and everybody, most people have experienced something called it's when you think you're a fraud, imposter syndrome. Give them a reason to respect your weapon. I like that. Give them a reason to respect your weapon. Imposter syndrome. When you see somebody and you see that guy's full of shit, I mean, he's just making it up. That's imposter syndrome. It isn't just how you feel about yourself. When you see somebody else and you kind of like hate them for some weird reason, sometimes people are just assholes, or sometimes just don't like their face. A lot of people don't like me. I say weird shit, makes them uncomfortable, or I come off a certain way they don't like. Or my face or my hair or whatever. Like it's okay. It's okay to not like people. But uh, but sometimes when you look at somebody and you're like, well, that guy's clearly just a fraud. That's almost most often imposter syndrome, because what's happening is you're looking at them and thinking, if I was standing there doing this, talking like that, I would be a fraud. And that's why you think that. That guy's not a fraud. That guy doesn't feel like a fraud. That guy's actually standing there at the thing on Major League Baseball or whatever the thing, the Grammys or whatever the thing you're watching. He is not a fraud. He's actually there doing the thing. He or she, they put themselves there. If you think they're a fraud, that's a reflection on how you see yourself. And most of us have had that experience somewhere in our lives. Um, and that experience, that would be a very tough thing to shed when you had just become famous for being famous. It would be really an underlying. Do you enjoy reading books about philosophy? I sure do. I sure do these days. And real low level philosophy, stoicism, and you know, actually, I'm listening to Shannon Lee's book of just Bruce Lee's daughter interpreting her relationship with his philosophies that she's read from mostly as an adult, but of course growing up as well. It's really great. It's called Be Water, My Friends, or My Friend. It's really good. I've really enjoyed it. Interesting path that she's on. Imagine, Bruce Lee's your dad. He dies when you're young. That would be, you're going to do your best, and your brother dies, who you're super close to, and you don't really understand where you're going. I mean, that could happen to anyone. If it can happen to Bruce Lee's daughter, it can happen to anyone. And she found her way out of it. It's a really good book. Um, but, uh, but yeah, imposter syndrome would be something you would deal with if you were famous for being famous. I'm pretty sure. Very cool T-shirt, Robin. Someone must have already mentioned it, but I was late to the party. Yeah, my wife got it for me for Christmas. Look at how cool is Prince, right? Um, but hey, I should go. I think we've been here for like 90 minutes, which has been just a thrill. What's your dream animal fighting championship matchup? Fuck, that's a tough one. There aren't a lot of like the heavyweights out there. You know, you there's not a lot of elephant versus rhino out there. If anyone comes across any of the heavyweights, grizzlies and like there's some kimono dragons I've seen, but there's a lot of people around them, and I analyzed it. It was really fascinating, but then I realized I think people were kind of forcing them to fight and bet on it. That's not my thing, man. It's hard to know where these clips were taken. I do a series for anyone who's wondering what we're talking about. It's on my Instagram and YouTube, and there's some on YouTube called the Intraspecies Fighting Championships. Which actually, check this out. Sorry that I've stepped away for 2 seconds, but I want to show you this. This is really cool. This is like my trademark of it. That is my trademark. So I've done it enough that the United States Patent and Trademark Office, when you do hundreds and hundreds of something, they're I'll take the silverback gorilla versus the chimp. I've done two silverbacks fighting each other. Take your time with the answer. I'll be waiting in a week or two. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I've also got this one's really cool. This is mine too. Enjoy the hostilities. So, I've done enough work over the last decade or two that the Patent and Trademark Office is like, this is something that's so specifically associated with you. We will give you a patent on it and it's not for me. That's the interesting thing when you look into patents. I'm working. Bink is also in process. Uh, uh, it's not to protect me. It's to protect the consumer. And if enough of the world, if the patent office believes that so many people have, and let's say there's 200 million views of my Intraspecies fighting championships, the patent office will believe that with those 200 million people and the people that know it from there, that somebody else using that thing could be misleading to the consumer. That's how they enjoy the hostilities, Robin. That's how they see that. And that's why they grant you that patent. But yeah, this is really meaningful to me. Enjoy the hostilities, which of course, enjoy the hostilities, my friends. It's just an extension of. I'll always have that now. This is something I've dedicated my life to doing something that I believe is meaningful. And there's an audience that believes my work is meaningful. And then, you get these little things along the way. Great to listen, Robin. Great insight. Keep up the good work. Thanks, man. The fans seem to push to make it to Dana White of the animal, to make you the Dana White of the animal fighting championships. The tough part is I love to analyze animals fighting, but I would never want to see a scenario in which animals were put into environments to fight. So I always try to find ones that at least appear to suggest that that happened in the wild. Or, if a squirrel fights a raccoon in downtown Toronto, I'll be there to analyze it. But I wouldn't want to create any scenario which I, tried to facilitate it. That would make me uncomfortable. If somehow I knew, so same with humans. I'll try to say goodbye after this, but I'm just having so much fun. It's very difficult. I will get ready to watch the fights. I will 100% be up 40. I swear, 40 minutes or less after McGregor versus Poirier. Okay. Spread the word if you're having fun or if you're happy that I'm back on YouTube. Um, Check out Baby Elephant. Okay, well, um, versus pheasants. I don't know if that's a thing that's spooky. If it is, but yeah, right after the fights, I will be back up on here. Um, I was going to leave it with something, but my mind has wandered. I should be. I should eat. I should refocus. I got to get myself together. Like I said, I'll be up after the fights, but I'm also gainfully employed, going to Sports Center to give the best analysis I can in the time allotted in such a way that the audience that can enrich the audience's understanding of whatever they saw. But man, this has been a real fun thing. I'm so reminded and so grateful for that. I'm reminded. It's been 3 weeks at least since I've been doing live things, so it's a thrill to be able to come in here and hang out with you guys. Um, and I will, yeah. If you enjoyed this, please take the link and share it around a little bit. Let's invite a few people back. It's so much fun. I'm not always in Toronto in the studio. Sometimes we're out in Stratford. That's where our house is. It's like an hour 50 from here. So I'm going to try to be in town once a week. I will absolutely try to do this once a week. Um, People have been very encouraging. Only a year ago, I would get people like, leaving comments demanding that I talk about the same old shit that other people talked about. And that I feel like that's actually really stopping. I feel that's really starting to go away. Maybe it's the audience. People know if you don't like me to meander out into fucking strange territories, don't follow Robin Black. So maybe I've just found an audience found me that will appreciate what I do, and I'm found the audience that might like it. Or maybe people are just starting to move away from the same old narratives and concepts. But yeah, it's very thrilling. So I will be back 30 to 40 minutes after the main event tonight. So please, I don't know where my off button is, but please come and rejoin me. And I'll probably go on Instagram Live a couple of times during the fights. Thanks so much. It's been a real treat. And I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends.